Have you been thinking about adding cabinets to your home, but you're just not sure if the cost of building them yourself is really worth it? Or maybe you think you have to have a shop full of tools you don't have, or maybe the skills that you need to know are just too much? Well, then this is the video you need to watch, because I'm going to be breaking down the pros and cons of buying versus building cabinets, showing you the real costs, and I'm going to give you an option that nobody on YouTube ever talks about that I think just might make this a no-brainer decision. I need three 30-inch base cabinets for a project I'm working on, so I thought to myself, this would make a great comparison video. So I bought a cabinet right off the shelf at the Big Orange Borg. Then I made a cabinet completely from scratch, and this third one I made using an option that I'm pretty sure most people don't even know is available to them, and it's the key to the whole video. So to head off any questions that I might get down below, the ground rules for this are going to be simple. I'm only counting the cost of what you would get if you bought a cabinet off the shelf. So that's the material to build the box, the material to build the drawers in the fronts, and then the drawer slides. Everything else, like drawer pulls and certainly countertops, that's all going to be separate, and that's going to keep this comparison apples to apples across the different methods. Okay, first up we have the Easy button, which is a big box store cabinet that you can just walk right in and buy off the shelf. This is really the bargain basement option, but a lot of people think that this is the only real option they have. You don't need any tools or skills, so it's super convenient, but all of that comes at a cost that I think doesn't add up. And I can't tell you how many comments I get every time I make a cabinet video that say something to the effect of, well, why would I build cabinets your way when I could just buy them off the shelf for the same price or cheaper? And I'm definitely going to go into why none of that statement is true at all. But first, let me show you what you do get off the shelf. This cabinet box is made of particle board, which is about the least structurally sound material that you could possibly use next to maybe ramen noodles. Actually, ramen may be stronger. Screws are going to strip right out because this material has no holding power at all, which is why outside of the drawer slides, I can't seem to find a single screw in this entire cabinet. It seems to be held together by some kind of industrial glue and unhinged optimism. And it's not even thick particle board. This looks like half an inch. Actually, half an inch might be generous. And this cabinet doesn't have any shelves in it, but I have had plenty of cheap college furniture, and this stuff will be a smiley face within a couple years if you stack any heavy dishes on it. But by far the biggest issue with particle board is that it's very susceptible to water damage. As this is exposed to moisture, it's going to swell up and literally crumble away. And, well, that's a problem because most cabinets go into kitchens, laundry rooms, and bathrooms, which all have running water and steam putting moisture into the air. And I was ready to give this cabinet some credit because these drawers are made of solid wood and they do have full extension slides, which is nice, but even here there are corners being cut. The website clearly states that this cabinet is supposed to have a top drawer with 4 inches of internal usable space and 8¼ inches on the lower drawers, but the entire height of this drawer isn't even 4 inches, and the same thing is true for the bottom drawers. And look at this, they put 22-inch drawer slides into this cabinet, but then they made the drawer box purposely smaller when a 22-inch box would fit in here no problem. And so you might say, well, what's the big deal? An inch here or there, what difference is that really going to make? Well, when you do the math, the drawer boxes that I designed hold 45% more volume than these and fit inside the exact same cabinet box. And there were other little corner cutting things like how badly this face frame was assembled and attached to the cabinet, and the fact that this top drawer doesn't match the style of the other 2 drawers, which I guess is a design decision they made, but in my opinion, this needs to match the other 2, and it's what I'm going to do on my cabinets. Besides materials, there are a couple other drawbacks when you buy off the shelf like this. These cabinets always come in generic styles and very basic sizes, so if you need something to fit a very specific space, you may have a hard time finding options that work for you. And the home center stores don't stock all the options in-house. So I ended up going to 3 different stores looking for this model cabinet, and none of them carried it in stock. So I ended up having to order it online and deliver to the store for pickup, which isn't a big deal. It doesn't cost anything extra to do that, but if you think you're going to walk in, buy everything you need, and then walk out and start your project, it's probably not going to happen that easily. All right, now that we've gone over the pros and cons of this option, what about the cost? Well, this cabinet, bought off the Home Depot website, cost me $399. Since this video is about options, I should mention here that buying cabinets can go in 2 very different directions. Sure, you can buy them off the shelf, but you can also go to the complete opposite end of the spectrum and have custom cabinets built for you. This is like the Easy button, but on steroids. You still don't have to have the tools or the skills to build them, but you're going to get a much higher quality product, built out of better materials like 3/4 inch plywood instead of 1/2 inch particle board. And these cabinets are going to be truly custom built to fit your exact space, your style, your sizes, and your options. But this all comes at a pretty steep price. And the process of designing and building custom cabinets is very time consuming. This isn't something that's going to happen quickly at all, usually taking several months. So I reached out to several custom cabinet makers, asking them what they would charge for a single 30-inch base cabinet with 3 drawers in the shaker style. And the quote range that I received was from $1,250 to $1,600. And that doesn't include the cost of installation or delivery. That's just to build the cabinet. So you're talking 3x to 4x more money than buying one off the shelf. And honestly, with custom cabinets, you could pour a whole lot more money into it with customization and design choices. There really is no upper limit here. So now we have a pretty good idea of the price range on the buy options, but let's see how things can change if you want to get your hands dirty and... Hold on. Hello. Yeah, it's me. No, I don't want a new roof. Thank you. Lose this number. Nothing makes me angrier than being in the middle of a project and getting a spam phone call. I've got to stop what I'm doing, answer the phone, only to be talking to someone who knows way more personal information about me than they should. And with how much of my personal data is constantly bought and sold online, I could never keep up with hunting it all down and removing it myself. I finally had enough and decided to do something about it by letting Incogni do the work for me. Incogni is a fully automated service that works 24/7 to track down your data and remove it from hundreds of these data broker sites. You can even track all the places Incogni has requested removal and which ones have already happened successfully. And you can use the custom removal feature, so if you find your information exposed on a site, just submit that URL to Incogni and let them do the heavy lifting. So if you want to keep your information private, just head to incogni.com/MWA or click that link down in the description and use the code MWA to save 60% off your annual plan. And thanks to Incogni for sponsoring this video. Now, what about those build options? So building cabinets from scratch has some real trade-offs with the buy option, obviously. The pros are that you get to handpick the materials that you use, and this is where the savings can really begin to show up. Like this fancy birch plywood that's already been finished on one side. This sheet was $65, which is $25 less than the unfinished and warped stuff that you can buy at the big box store. Don't worry if you're skeptical and think, sure, Mr. Fancy YouTuber has some special access to crazy nice wood and a secret honey hole that regular people can't access. But the truth is, you don't need any special access to get your hands on this plywood. You just need a little know-how. I have a whole video just on plywood and where to get the quality stuff for cabinets. And for like 90% of the population of the United States, this is a totally obtainable thing. Besides having control over the quality of your cabinets, you also have full control over the design. Whatever sizes, styles, functions you need, well, you're building it. No more settling for what's on the shelf. But every option has pros and cons, and building them from scratch is no exception. For starters, you have to have some tools. I know, outrageous, right? You gotta have tools to do woodworking. Go ahead, roast me in the comments for how out of touch I am. But honestly, cabinets are a great entry point into this craft because to build cabinets like this, you don't need a workshop stocked full of tools, not even close. The biggest hurdle to overcome is processing sheet goods. I 100% recommend a track saw for this. It's going to change your life and make you love woodworking immediately, but of course, someone's going to go down to the comments and remind me that they've been building cabinets for over 40 years and only use a circular saw with no dust collection and make perfectly straight and square cuts with no guides at all. So, unless you come with 40 years of woodworking experience already under your belt, I'm going to let you decide which way you want to do it. If you are still skeptical of getting a track saw or you just don't know if it'd be worth it for you, I did put out a video a few months back where I made 14 feet of simple cabinets and I used just my track saw to cut out all the parts. If you do end up grabbing a track saw, something else that's handy is to grab some pink foam insulation board. This gives you a great surface to cut on, whether you're cutting it on the floor or elevating your work to a more comfortable height. It's not going to scratch your work, and it works really well to give the blade somewhere to go when you're cutting. And one of these is going to last you years and years. You can just cut it and recut it over and over. The next tool that's nice to have is a pocket hole jig for joinery. And while these are relatively inexpensive and easy to use, you could also just screw right into the side of the cabinet, assuming that you won't be seeing the sides. And if you go this route, you do still need a tool that will drill and countersink your holes just like a pocket hole jig would do. Don't skip this step because screwing right into the side of plywood has a high chance of splitting those layers and ruining the joint. Now throw in a square, a drill driver set, and some clamps for assembly, and you've got yourself a cabinet box. By the way, this cabinet does have notches cut out in the sides for the toe kicks, which I cut out using a jigsaw. You could certainly skip this step if you want to and just build separate bases for your cabinets, but the one that I bought off the shelf had built-in toe kicks, so that's what I did here just to keep this comparison as close as possible. Now for the doors and drawers, I do think you need to have access to a table saw. It doesn't have to be a fancy cabinet saw, a job site saw is going to do just fine. A table saw is a nice tool for this work because it opens up some joinery options that you'd otherwise need a router table with some fancy expensive bits to accomplish. Things like dados to house the drawer bottoms and also to hold the bottom and back panel of the cabinet in perfect alignment. And tongue and groove joinery for the doors and drawer fronts. And building drawer boxes is another place I highly recommend using pocket screws. Yes, there are other options, and I have an entire other video that talks about nothing but building and installing drawers, which I'll also link to down below. I use pocket screws for almost every drawer box that I build because they're quick to assemble and they give me a very clean looking drawer side. But on occasion I will do half blind dovetails when I want that very specific look, usually when I'm using undermount drawer slides. Speaking of slides, I'm using side mount full extension slides for this build because that's what the big box store cabinet has. Normally if I was doing this cabinet for a kitchen I would use undermounts, but again I'm trying to keep this comparison the same, and these cabinets are going to end up living in my garage anyway, so I'm not going to spend the extra money for undermount slides. And for a face frame, you can buy 1x2 strips of wood and cut them to length a bunch of different ways. I think a miter saw works best, but a hand saw and careful cutting will get the job done too. And here's where pocket holes come in real handy to assemble it. Well, I have a lot of painting to do, and since this video is about cabinet costs and not about how to paint, I'll see you in, well, you'll see me in like 2 seconds. Another con is just how long all this will take. The design process alone could take weeks of concentrated work, and building every cabinet from the ground up could take even longer than that, depending on how much time you have to dedicate to it and how many cabinets you're building. So what about the cost? Well, for the plywood, all the hardwood to make the drawer boxes, face frame and fronts, drawer slides, screws, glue, and paint, this cost me $238 to make, which is $161 cheaper than the cabinet from the big box store, and this is light years better quality, so much stronger and so much nicer looking. And before the keyboard warriors show up in the comments below, no, the cost of the tools don't count because you get to keep those tools and do other projects for the rest of your life. I mean, that is why they call it a hobby. If you're going to go out and buy a bunch of tools just to do one project and then never do anything else again, that's just weird. Nobody does that. But even if you are willing to buy all the tools needed to get started, this is all still just too much, and you don't think that you can build a cabinet completely from scratch. Well, that's why I made this video, and that's why I want to show you this next option, because I think it might be the one that suits you the best. So there's two basic parts to any cabinet. There's the box, which is the easiest and cheapest part to build, and it's also the least visible part of the cabinet. Then there's the part of the cabinet that everyone sees, the doors, drawer fronts, and drawer boxes. Well, what if you built the box and let a pro build the rest? Here's a secret you probably didn't know. Most custom cabinet shops, they don't build their own doors and drawers. They subcontract that work out to a whole other group of makers who just make those two products. And the good news is those companies, they'll sell directly to you, the homeowner. One of those companies is Eagle Woodworking just north of Boston, Massachusetts. They custom make cabinet doors, drawer fronts, and dovetail drawer boxes. Everything is made to order to your exact specs. They don't sell standard sizes off the shelf like a big box store because they want to work to fit within your specific project. They're selling you the exact same custom-made product that they sell to the custom cabinet makers. They've been in business for over 45 years, and even though they're in Massachusetts, they will ship to my door and to anyone in the US. So with an option like this, more than half the work of building cabinets is going to be done by a professional to professional level standards. But what about the cost? How does this compare to everything else we've talked about? The cost of these 3 drawers plus the drawer fronts was $578, but remember, now I don't have to buy any of the material to build these myself, which brings my cost of materials down to just what's needed to build the cabinet box, which makes the total cost of this hybrid cabinet $691. So which option would you choose? Is that hybrid method going to be the one that gives you the confidence to start your next cabinet project? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you learned something from this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. That way you make sure you catch the next video. And until next time, have fun in the shop.